Well, again, welcome to this second session of the 2019 AgrAbility Virtual National Training Workshop. My name is Paul Jones, and I'm the manager of the National AgrAbility Project at Purdue University. This afternoon, we're going to have a virtual assistive technology show and tell. And for those that have attended our in-person National Training Workshop, we traditionally have an assistive technology show and tell, but this is the first time we've tried to do that type of thing in a virtual environment. I'm going to be one of the presenters today, and joining me is Steve Swain, who is the Assistive Technology Specialist with the National AgrAbility Project and also a Rural Rehabilitation Specialist with the Indiana AgrAbility Project. For those that might not be familiar with AgrAbility, we are a program sponsored by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and we focus on issues of disability in agriculture. Every AgrAbility project is a partnership between a land-grant university and at least one nonprofit disability services organization. There's one national AgrAbility project and currently 20 funded state projects. The national project, again, is headquartered here at Purdue University, and our partners are Goodwill of the Finger Lakes, APRIL, the Association of Programs for Rural Independent Living, Colorado State University, and Washington State University. If you'd like more information and perhaps like to view some of our more than 70 archived webinars, you can go to agrability.org and explore. So the session today, I want to give you just a brief outline before we launch in. I'm going to give just an overview of the Toolbox Assistive Technology Database. We're not exclusively using that today, but we're going to be using it heavily, and I want to make sure that you know how to come back and find the things that you need to find. So we'll look at the structure and also some of the just assistive technology highlights that I've picked out from the toolbox today. After that, Steve Swain is going to show some on-farm examples of assistive technology that he has encountered during his many years as a rural rehabilitation specialist. We'll have our polls and question and answer period, and then as time allows, I'll show a few coming attractions from the toolbox. These are products that we have reviewed but have not yet been able to put online, so you'll get a little preview of some of those. A few things to keep in mind as we look at the database. Assistive technology does not have to be specifically designed for someone with a disability. And for the most part, what you're going to see today are products or solutions, as we call them, that were not initially designed for people with disabilities. However, they do improve the functional capacity of people with disabilities, or they can, and so they do fit into the category of assistive technology. The toolbox does cover a wide spectrum in both disability and agriculture, excuse me, all the way from row crops and livestock production and dairy to things like beekeeping and hydroponics and aquaponics and all the other specialty niche crops that you can think of. We have commercially manufactured products in the toolbox. We have homemade solutions and ideas, and we also point you to some online instructions for things like how to put together, your own chicken tractor or chicken coop. We do review everything that's put in the toolbox by committee. We look at whether it's suitable for the database criteria and if we notice any safety issues that might be a concern. We do not have the capacity to actually test everything that we put in the toolbox, but we do have a multi-person committee that does review the suggested products. The toolbox first became an online database in 2011. If you'd like to go directly to the toolbox, there are two URLs that take you directly to the toolbox. agrability.org/toolbox and also thetoolbox.info both take you directly to the toolbox. But we will explore it through the home page of agrability.org as most people do. Just a little bit of an overview. There are 15 main categories in the toolbox. Within that, there are 46 subcategories, and within those subcategories, there are 184 headings, which you could consider subcategories. And ultimately, that takes you to 1,487 solutions or products as of today. And we do keep expanding that. And I mention this partly so you see what the structure is like, but also to let you know we're only going to be able to scratch the surface today. I can only show you a few things. If I started right now and showed you every product I could in the next 50 minutes, we wouldn't get a quarter of the way through the toolbox. So that's one reason we want you to come back and explore it yourself. Also, I would mention that as we've picked out some products, we're not intending to endorse those products today, especially if there are other similar products. We simply had to pick some, and so that's what we've done. We're not trying to show favoritism in any way by the solutions that we picked. So now I'm going to attempt to share my screen and share an application. Okay, let's go to the homepage of AgrAbility.org. And since we are showing this to you through the interface of the WebEx webinar platform, it will be smaller. I'm sorry that's the case, but again, a good reason for you to come back and explore the toolbox yourself. I'll magnify it as much as we can, and I think it is magnified as large as I can get it at this point. So there are a couple of options for reaching the toolbox from the main page, the home page. Up at the top, you'll see there is a toolbox link there. On the side, main menu. On the left-hand side, there is another Toolbox database link. And while we're on the main page, the home page, I will also point out that on most pages of AgrAbility.org, there's also a module called Most Recent Toolbox Additions. And every time we put new additions into the toolbox, the most recent 6 of them appear in this module. So if you like what you see today, you want to come back, find out what's new in the toolbox, but you don't want to look through the entire thing every time, I'd recommend you check back every couple weeks. We try to get at least 10 new products in a month. That's not always the case, but that's our goal. So check back and see what's new in the toolbox through that module. We'll go ahead and click on the toolbox link, and that takes you to the main page. There is a description, background information, your standard acknowledgments and disclaimers. And then it says you can view by category or you can search the toolbox. We'll be using the view by category primarily today, but I want to show you the search mechanism and let you know how that works. This has been improved significantly in the last month. It was having some issues before, and I think it's running pretty smoothly. So let's say you want to look for a wrench to see what type of wrenches are in the toolbox. You could type in that term and then click search. And in this case, it would come up with 30 different results that either have the word wrench in the title or somewhere in the description. So most of the products here are wrenches, but then of course you get things like this tool caddy here, and it includes the fact that you can store wrenches in it, so that's why that comes up. And then you can go to the next 5 down here and so on until you find out everything in the toolbox that is related to wrenches. You can do the same thing with supplier names like Deere and come up with anything that's got Deere listed in it. Or if you know the specific name of a product like the Gator, you could type in Gator and it would come up in search. So let's go back to the view by category, and this will take us to our table of contents, and here we have the 15 main categories that I mentioned. I'm going to use one of them as a an example to show you the different levels and also highlight some of the features. So shops and shop tools is one of the main categories, and when I click on that I get 3 subcategories: accessibility and layout, hand tools, and shop equipment. If I click on, for example, hand tools, then I get what we call the headings, or the subcategories, and within that we've got clamping and holding tools, easy grip hand tools, grease guns, low vision home/shop project aids, nailing and stapling tools, painting and cleaning tools, prosthesis adapted tools, and reduced force tools. You may wonder why we have so many different levels and so many different headings. And it's because we don't want you to have to look through 100 products in a list to try to pick out what you want. We try to make these headings as efficiently as possible so that you spend the least amount of time trying to find what you're looking for. And we do keep expanding these as we get more and more products or solutions in the database. So let's look on nailing and stapling tools as an example. And here we come up with the final 4th level, which is what we know as the solution or product level. These are the actual products, and so if we, for example, take the last product or solution, and it's called the PAMFast Auto Feed Screwdriving Tool. This is an example of the solution page. The main text is a description that we come up with through either information from websites or brochures or whatever information we can get. That is something we come up with and write. There is a photo, and if you click on the photo, it expands to give you a better idea of what this particular product looks like. Even with that, it's sometimes difficult to envision what the tools actually do. So, excuse me, in many cases we have a video icon that takes you usually to YouTube. And I'm going to click on this to show you it as an example, but at best you will get a jumpy video because we're looking at it again through WebEx. If you clicked on it yourself, it would take you again just to a regular video as you'd see on YouTube. So let's go ahead and click just to see what we come up with. You're not getting sound, but of course there is sound as you would get on any YouTube video. And so this gives you an idea of what this tool does, especially helpful if you're doing things like flooring a large number of entering screws into some type of material. So that gives you an idea of the video and what that particular product does. We have a cost range entry. If there's only one supplier, it normally just says see below. If there are multiple suppliers for similar products, we give you the range from lowest to high in terms of what the potential cost could be. This next area is the limitation addressed by, and these are basically disability-related categories. In this case, lower extremity, upper extremity, strength, endurance, and back issues would probably be things that could be helped by this type of product. Other limitations would include vision, respiratory, even memory. Down here we have what we call a breadcrumb trail that I'm highlighting here. That shows you where you're at in the toolbox. If you wanted to go back and look at all the hand tools, you could do that, or all the shop tools. And in some cases there are multiple headings under which a product is listed, and I'll demonstrate that, and that can be helpful too. So I want to show you we have the supplier information. We do not sell anything directly through the toolbox or through AgrAbility. We include things like the street addresses and phone and fax, but probably the most helpful thing would be the website. So if we click on that, it comes up with that particular supplier's website, and often you can order directly from those suppliers. and an email address when available. We can only put those things on when available. Now, some products or solutions do have other things listed on their fact sheets. So I'm taking you to agriculture-related enterprises briefly, and we're going to look at woodlots and forestry. And within that, I will take you to brush clearing. And finally, at the solution level, I will show you the timber axe brush cutter / shredder. And then I'll show you the picture of this device. It's a little smaller than I'd like, but essentially this product attaches to a skid steer loader and essentially shreds anything in its path. And I'll show you the video quickly to give you a better idea. If you can see what it does. So you can see it hopefully shredding through some underbrush, but the next you'll be able to see it actually take down a fairly significantly, well, not a huge tree, but it'll chop it down, and then after that it turns it into sawdust. So one reason I point that out is that on some solutions there are caution notes. In fact, everything, almost everything in the wood cutting area contains a caution, and certainly other products do also. Now I noticed that some, mentioned before that some products have multiple categories. This one is not only in the brush clearing section of wood lots and forestry, it's also in skid steer loaders and skid steer loader modifications and accessories. So let's say you're interested in what you saw and you wanted to see more skid steer type modifications. If you click on that, excuse me, it takes you to that section and shows you a variety of other attachments and modifications you could make to skid steer loaders. So back up in agriculture-related enterprises, I want to point out one of our more rapidly expanding areas, and that is under beekeeping aids. It seems to be a popular topic among a lot of people in agriculture and even non-agriculturalists, and so we're seeing more and more products. Several of them are easier to use beehives. This, for example, is a horizontal beehive that could be easier to manage than the traditional stacked beehives, especially for somebody with a strength limitation or other mobility impairment. So we go to back, and just to point out that not everything in the toolbox is a high-tech, high-cost item. For example, this bucket bench pail holder, it costs $17. And if you look at it in the photo, it's simply a plastic frame that slips over the lip of one bucket, in this case a 5-gallon bucket that has a spigot on the side. So you're collecting honey in the other bucket, but you don't want to stand there and hold the bucket till it all drains out. Especially if somebody's got a strength limitation. Honey does not flow rapidly, so this could be something that would be beneficial in that regard. I also point out up at the top, we've got several things: back search, view by category, and then there's this technical articles link that takes you to our Plowshares technical articles. And those are in-depth studies of particular aspects of disability in agriculture, things like farming with a visual impairment or farming with a lower extremity amputation. They usually are maybe 8 to 16 pages long. They do include assistive technology examples, but they're not exclusively assistive technology, so those are available too. I want to just run over quickly what different categories entail in the crops and materials. We've got a variety of things from hay and seed and forages to chemicals and bulk materials. Gardening includes different types of garden beds and garden tools. We know that a lot of people in agriculture also have gardens, and they also need to take care of lawns, so we've got different types of lawn mowers, other types of lawn aids. Livestock, of course, is important in agriculture. Beef and poultry and swine and everything in between covered in that category. Outdoor mobility is not only wheelchairs, but outdoor navigation, and that includes things like snow removal, making sure your paths are even and appropriate for people with disabilities to walk on. We know a lot of people in agriculture engage in hunting and fishing, so we include that section. Safety and health includes equipment safety like fire protection and then personal protective equipment. We already looked at shops and shop tools briefly. Skid steer loaders we touched on also. Tractors and combines is where you would find things like hand controls and lifts to get you up into the tractor. Steve is going to spend more time on that, so I will not spend a lot of time on that myself. We include aids for people that work with nurseries and also orchards and vineyards. So we've got pruning and trimming aids, powered trimmers and other ladders and things to get up into trees. Obviously, trucks are important to just about any type of agricultural operation, so we need to make sure we get people into them. They're able to control them through hand controls or other means. They can hitch them and also get into the backs of the pickup trucks. And we also include things like hoists to lift things up into those beds. Utility vehicles are extremely important. Things like John Deere Gators and Kawasaki Mules. So we list some of those and also a variety of different modifications and accessories, things to even plant or cultivate your crops with your utility vehicle or your ATV. I'll spend just a little bit of time here in the vegetable, small fruit, and flower production section because it is another rapidly expanding section. A lot of people are getting into the smaller acreage types of enterprises. So we've kind of broken it up into both indoor and outdoor. Greenhouse and shade house being indoor, outdoor and high tunnel being more of the outdoor type production. So for example, if we look in aquaponics and hydroponics, we've got things all the way from these large commercial scale aquaponics systems where you're producing a large number of fish in these tanks and a large bed of greens. And if you check the price on that, it would be about $36,000 to start. So we've got large-scale equipment, and then we've got small-scale stuff too. So this small-scale system would be more of what you could put in a garage, a basement if you had lighting, that type of thing. So we try to include products from a variety of perspectives from what people might be interested in. If we looked at the outdoor and high tunnel production for vegetables and smaller crops, things like harvesting. If we took a look here under the harvesting and this picking assistant, a motorized lay-down work cart. So hopefully you can see this. The person is lying down in an ergonomically relaxed position, and they're able to guide the cart and control its speed. It also has a canopy to shade from the sun and elements. It looks like this person is doing a large field of strawberries, and in this case the price is only about $3,500. So I might want one of those too if I did a large field of strawberries because I don't like stooping and bending, especially for long periods of time. So that's another section, this small fruits and vegetable section. I'll take you quickly to outdoor mobility. I want to keep on track with our time today. This is another section that's expanding rapidly, and particularly in outdoor powered wheelchairs. I'll take you down to that level. And most specifically, we're seeing an increasing number of tracked outdoor powered wheelchairs. There's been kind of an explosion of those. One of the more well-known, I think, and popular is the Action Track Chair that comes also in a stand-up model. There are, for example, gasoline-powered versions like the Track Fab. That's the electric version, excuse me. I wanted to get the gasoline-powered one. Okay, there we go, the Track Fab gas-powered tracked wheelchair. For those that don't want to rely on batteries, we're getting some hybrid kind of tracked machines like, let's see, where is the Ringco Tuck utility chair that supposedly has a towing capacity of 4,000 pounds. So it's supposed to be like a hybrid of a wheelchair and a utility vehicle. Obviously not everything in this section is a tracked chair. We've got more traditional things like the Journeyman scooter. That's a three-wheeled scooter. And like the Frontier powered wheelchair is more of a traditional type of wheelchair with a more rugged design. One of the other things that we're seeing quite a bit of is a movement toward smart technologies. And those include things like tools that would have a connection to your smartphone, like a laser level or a measuring device that would connect to your smartphone. Another area we're seeing smart devices in is livestock handling and housing. So if we went to beef and dairy cattle and then to calving and calf care equipment, and we clicked on the Moo Call calving alert device, the Moo Call is a sensor that attaches to the cow's tail and connects virtually to your cell phone, and by the tail movements, it's supposed to tell you when the cow is most likely to give birth. Another area is in horses and other horse-related equipment. We have the Seahorse wearable remote monitor, and of course, since these are techie and modern, they have to have clever names. So this is the Seahorse, which allows you to see your horse virtually, in a sense. Clips onto the bridle and allows you to see things like temperature, pulse rate, and respiratory rate from your phone. Even in the swine production, we do have a remote monitor, the Smart Guard Piglet Welfare Monitor. And this attaches to the sow, and I'm not exactly sure how it works. It's got a monitor on the side, and it alerts you if any of the piglets are supposed to be in distress, so that they're not crushed by their mother. Okay, that's all I'm going to do right now in terms of the toolbox. I'm going to hand things over to Steve. I need to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to open Steve's presentation, and then I'm going to pass the presenter ball to Steve, and he'll take it from here for a little while.
Good afternoon. I wanted to start, we're going to look at a number of different modifications. But I wanted to show you this first one to give you an idea of the resourcefulness of our farmers. Also, some of the safety issues. Cable winches that are not for human use. You got the different straps on the hand controls. It's difficult to see, but the electric cord going through the steel side of a building without protection. Very resourceful, but scary in sometimes. And that couple of other examples. The top right is a Hoyer lift that a client used to get into 150 horse tractors. Took a lot of help, and he couldn't do it by himself. The bottom left is a way to get your tools and anything else you need on your truck lift, have it with you. This is the direction we move on lifts. Top left, you see a pilot lift from Life Essentials, adaptable to any size tractor. And then bottom right, we have an independent pilot lift, not attached to the tractor, but can be pulled around for multiple pieces of equipment. Top right, a truck lift, which we have gone to majority of the time when we're looking at lifts, because we're looking at multiple pieces of equipment to access. The gentleman that's using that lift will talk more later on some other adaptations. And the Life Essentials has expanded some, and many of you have seen the John Deere tractor with the pilot lift that you drive from the seat of the lift. Unique and used mostly on the smaller tractors. We get into some of the hitching. Our clients with mobility impairments, difficult to get on and off. So you have the AgrAbility hitch there on the left. Top right is the old-fashioned way of putting a rope on the hitch pin and pulling it when you're unhooking. The hitch down at the bottom right is hooked onto the fork on a forklift. You have multiple ways of hitching up with a pin or with a ball hitch. We talk about hand controls, many different ways. We also, for some of us who have difficulty climbing up on tractors because of our arthritis, we look at some of the extra steps. The middle picture there is a reminder for us that with those extra steps, they're down lower, and sometimes we've got to watch out for rocks or other objects that can put a pretty good bend in them. I know that there are times when we miss or don't think of some things, and this gentleman has Parkinson's and has some difficulty climbing, and he was combining independently, but we needed a way to get him up on the back of the combine to clean the filters, to check the oil, to fuel up. So we put a cable winch to raise and lower the ladder, and it's worked very well for him. We get into some of our livestock producers and produce, and a couple examples of utility vehicles that we've recommended. With livestock, I don't know how the weather is where you are, but here we're looking at maybe 40 below wind chill tonight. The livestock still has to be taken care of, so the utility vehicle there in the bottom is a Kubota full cab and has a heater and air conditioner on it. Our clients with spinal cord injuries especially have difficulty controlling body temperature, so we try to moderate it with the heater and air conditioner. The utility vehicle there at the top right and left, one of my clients with raising produce, way for him to get across the plots of produce, but he also had an arm amputation at the shoulder, so he needed a way of lifting crates and moving things around. So in top right, you see a electric crane to raise and lower different products. You've got his garden planter there, and an auger on his cordless drill. That way he doesn't have to bend over and can dig his holes. Mentioned the gentleman on the truck lift. He and his father were farming a substantial acreage, and he was working off farm. The father passed away, and he was taking care of the operation by himself in a wheelchair. So you see ramps helping him get around the different grain bins and over the augers. Is using a air system also. But what is unique about this grain system is that he is able to control the dryer, the blower, the augers, can check the level of the grain in the grain bins from his smartphone. He can check the status of all of them from his home if need be. He doesn't have to climb. Very sophisticated, running about 3,400 acres of part-time help, so very helpful for him. And I said that on the left you have a monitor for the grain bin to check levels and grain temperature and grain moisture. Bottom right, level alert. Put a series of those on the side of the bin, usually about 3, so you can tell the level of the grain in the bin without having to climb. But if you do have to climb and are able to climb a stairway, that is the way to go. And you see an example of a stairway up to the side of a grain bin, and then stairs to the top of the bin. Gotten into more of seed tenders. The one on the left, there are some that you can operate remotely. Gasoline engine with a remote start, and be able to move the auger and fill from the seat of the tractor. Bottom right, gentleman in a wheelchair found this. He's got an air system on the hopper wagon where he can take the end of the tubing and fill the grain boxes on his planter. Another thing that we don't think about is getting in and out of the back of the truck. Again, for some of us that have difficulty climbing, this is one of the lifts, tailgate lifts. We see those in some of the trucks going around town, but very helpful on the farm truck. I know we've talked about skid steer loaders and getting in and out of them. And there's a group at seniors at Ohio State doing capstone projects of getting in and out. This is a JCB skid steer, and it is a side entrance. Got a young man with cerebral palsy. His father helps him into the skid steer, and he is able to independently move bales of hay from the field and also take them out to the cattle to feed them. A couple of top right is a homemade golf cart adapted for a wheelchair. The ramp is hydraulic, and it's got a little longer ramp, making it easier for a manual chair. On the lower left is a auger bucket, and this is a product that we found a year and a half ago. A couple of clients are using one. One of them is feeding Holstein heifers. He buys them about 400 pounds and sells them as pregnant cows. And so he is basically hand feeding 170, 200 head by hand. And he's using a JCB skid steer and putting this auger bucket on it. And he is able to put feed in it through a bulk bin. And then on the lower right-hand corner of it, the auger is able to dump it into the feed bunks. We were able to put a scales on it. There's a couple of ways of doing that. One is through the hydraulics, and the other is putting load bars underneath it. The load bars is difficult, but he is very happy with being able to do that. We said we're moving into high tunnels and greenhouses. Bottom right is the greenhouse before we made any modifications. Gentleman using a manual wheelchair, just had a couple of the rubber mats down by the beds. Had difficulty getting around. In the top two pictures you see, he has an Action Track Stander power wheelchair that he is able to stand, and has the strawberries growing on the wall, the raised beds, but also has the rubber mats over all of the floor, and is able to access all of it. His intention was to be able to reach the top beds on the right. He had double-decked them. That didn't quite work out the way he wanted to, but he's very pleased and is able to sell to local restaurants. I have looked at some of our produce clients, and raising spinach and greens, and just looking at it made my back hurt. On the left is a harvester. You have a cordless drill attached to it, and there is a sickle mower down at the bottom that cuts it off, and the cords rotate, kicking the greens that you've cut off into the basket. A lot easier on your back and a lot quicker. Top right is a transplanter for transplants, your tomatoes, cucumbers, and so forth. And then the bottom is a planter for small seeds that you're planting in narrow rows. We talked about the cordless drill and the auger and the planter. Again, saving your back and making it much easier. We talked about beekeeping, or Paul did. On the left is another accessible beehive. The crank on the side pivots the beehive down to where it can be accessed from a wheelchair, or if, like some of us that use a 5-gallon bucket to sit on, but can access it there. One of our clients that probably some of you have met, Mark Hosier, developed the gate opener. This is for his sows when he lets them out to feed. He's got a rope and a pin, and the gate is sitting on a wheel, and he pulls the pin, and the sows are ready to eat, and so they push the gate open and move into the feeding area. And I believe that is it. We'll turn it back to Paul.
Thanks a lot, Steve. Lots of good ideas from some good experience there. We're going to do our 4 quick poll questions. And while we're doing that, we did have a couple of questions in the chat. And if you have more questions, please feel free to type those in or raise your hand. One question, can you search by limitation in the toolbox? And right now we do not have that function, but it's a good thing for us to think about. You can search the terms, but it will only come up with things that are in the description or the title. It won't come up and search that limitation function. So that's something we can add to our list of things to do. Another question, do you accept suggestions for modifications or products from the public for your team to review for the toolbox? And the question is, yes, please. In fact, we used to have a link on, I think, every toolbox solution page that said suggest a toolbox product, but that was getting abused by spammers. So we discontinued that. If you go to Contact Us on the website, that link, hopefully you can see the poll results there. You can just let us know through the Contact Us section, or you can email me, whatever you'd like to do. We welcome all suggestions, and we do review them through our committee. So I appreciate the question. Then, as we close today, we're just a little bit over, but it'll only take another minute. Some coming attractions. This is called the Buggy, and it is a wheelchair accessible utility vehicle. You can lower the lift in the back and roll right up into the Buggy. They make a single version for one person and a double. This is a double, I believe. So that should be available in the next few weeks on the toolbox. We are including a variety of cordless handheld pruning saws. It seems like with the advent of lithium-ion batteries, there's no end to what you can do with cordless tools, and this is a new type that you can use in your vineyard or orchard or backyard for easy cutting of whatever, limbs, vines, and we're not pushing Bosch. That happens to be the photo, but there are a variety of models that will be included as suppliers. This is called the Kikka Digga, another garden-related product. It's a frame that fits over the top of a shovel, or in this case, a digging fork. And you tighten it onto that frame, and it's got a plate on the back so that you can step on the plate rather than on, the narrow top of the shovel or fork or whatever you're putting it on top of. And I think this is the final one I've got for you. Dirt Dog is actually the name of the manufacturer. This is an ATV, and I am assuming it would work on a UTV also. It is a standard frame, and then on that frame you can put a variety of different tools so that you don't have to buy all those tools separately. This is a grader for roadways or driveways. They make aerators, other types of devices. I don't believe they've got, I don't believe they have, harvesting or planting equipment, at least at this point. But it is an interesting idea to give you a kind of a multi-tool. Let's see if there are any more questions in chat before we go today. A question, do we have a list of the top searched tools? We actually did look at a search like that. Actually, it searched the photos because that, I think, was the easiest way to search it. And I can't tell you what it was right now, but I can look that up and see what we came up with. Okay, we're at the end of our time and a little bit over. We appreciate you sticking with us, and we hope you will join us for additional sessions in the virtual National Training Workshop. So looks like classes are canceled at Purdue tomorrow. Hopefully I'll be able to get into the building and keep this going tomorrow. So please tune in tomorrow too. Thanks and have a good day.